Rumors have reached me this week that Apple is about to put a number of its older iPhones on a "Do Not Resuscitate" list. Several sources of Apple gossip are saying that older iPhones and iPads could be excluded from the forthcoming iOS 15 upgrade when it launches. The models affected are said to be the iPhone 6s and iPhone SE. I can't confirm the news at this stage as Apple is notoriously tight-lipped about these things, but it would make sense if my own experience is anything to go by. I still own and use a first-generation iPhone SE. There. Having said it, I feel better already. It may seem like heresy for me to admit that I use such an old iPhone. After all, I am a technology journalist and yet I'm using a phone that's 6 years old. In mitigation, I would point out that the reason I still use an iPhone SE is that it has a headphone jack which I need for testing wired earphones. Also, it's small enough to fit in one hand and I am prone to dropping things following a serious illness a few years back. I even bought a backup iPhone 6s because that was the last model Apple produced with a headphone jack and I thought it prudent to have a spare, just in case the iPhone SE gave up the ghost. The other reason I've hung on to my old iPhone is perhaps a little more altruistic. I think it's incumbent on us all to ensure we get the maximum life out of our technology. The rare metals and materials inside our phones and tablets are finite. Sending electronic waste to be recycled is a step in the right direction, but I have a nasty suspicion that some of the waste ends up in landfills or being disassembled by child labor in the developing world. I'm not suggesting this is the case with Apple, but I do think we need to be more mindful of our electronic waste and make sure we get the most from it. I was reminded of this sense of thrift recently when I saw a photo of the Queen's eldest son, Prince Charles, wearing a tweed overcoat that he's been wearing for 50 years. There were even a couple of pictures taken showing him with it on, half a century apart. If someone like the Prince of Wales can make do and mend, then maybe I can too. Last year, I wrote about how my iPhone SE started to have problems after I upgraded it to iOS 13. Suddenly it was chewing through battery charges and getting hot enough to fry the proverbial egg on when using Safari and Twitter. Since then, I've paid to have the battery changed twice at my local Apple store, but the problem persists. The phone can eat a battery in less than 2 hours and sometimes gets too hot to hold and has to be shut down to cool off. There are times when I seriously regret giving in to my upgrade urges. So as much as I abhor the idea of my phones being given a DNR order, in this situation I understand why. There is a limit as to how long a piece of technology can keep going. The replacement cycle of consumer goods is much shorter now because the pace of innovation is so much faster nowadays.